1. So for a few years now, I've been experiencing quite a few glitches. However, what happened the other night takes the cake. Christmas was Sunday, and yes, very exhausting. With 4 little ones at the house, I'm sure you can imagine. Well, although I don't have much money, I made sure I put in thought of what I would be getting each child. So the 2 youngest are little girls, aged 6 and 8. They both are still into toys, but are kinda iffy about dolls. Because I watch a lot of creepy movies such as Annabelle, Chucky, and so on, I decided to get for one of their gifts to be a noise-making stuffed pet. The oldest daughter, Rena, got a flamingo that makes chirping bird sounds. The youngest one, Laya, got a puppy that barks. Simple enough and very cute. Well, the other night, it was me and Laya in the kitchen. Laya had Rena's flamingo. "Listen, Mommy, the bird is copying me," says Laya. "Copying me," says the flamingo. "What?" I say. "What?" says the bird. And it went on in such a way, repeating us until Laya finally decided to turn the damn thing off and throw it. So I was telling her how I didn't know that the flamingo had that feature. She said she didn't either, but it was creepy, and she didn't want to play with it any longer. I call out to my daughter Rena so that I can ask her if she knew that her toy has this cool feature, but she was asleep. The next day, yesterday, I was getting ready for work and saw the flamingo. Rena and my son were awake. Well, I had it on my mind then. I asked Rena about the toy, and she said she didn't know either. However, when I turned it on to demonstrate to them what it was doing, it didn't do it. It just made the chirping sound. What? So there's a button with a music symbol on it you have to push in order to get it to sing. I pressed that button over and over, and only chirping came out. I shook the toy, talked to it, yelled at it, threatened it, examined it for any other buttons to which there weren't any, and only chirping. So now I'm feeling crazy. I go wake up Laya as proof that it actually was repeating to us the night before, and she confirmed. I asked her what she did to make it do that, and she said nothing. She just started talking to it, and it talked back. Well, I had to go to work, so I left, but prior to punching in, I looked up the toy on the site that I bought it from, and read the features. To my utter shock and horror, it only read that the bird chirps. I googled it also, and nothing was mentioned about it talking, let alone copying voices. I was totally creeped out, and I'm trying to figure out a way to throw the toy in the garbage without Rena noticing. 2. To preface this story, I do not believe in ghosts or anything paranormal, but this is something I fully cannot explain. In case anyone is wondering, I have never taken any drugs and was over 16 for everything discussed. For context, I have worked at a movie theater for around 8 years. In late 2017, I received a promotion to manager and began to close the building at night. In short, besides office work, all that is required to close is to go through each auditorium in the theater and check to make sure nobody is still there. The first time anything unexplainable occurred was January 8th, 2018. I was making my rounds as usual, checking each theater to make sure everyone had left. When I got to auditorium number 9, one of the last ones left to check, I began to walk up the walkway towards the seats where I heard the voices. I didn't think much about it, but was slightly annoyed as the last movie playing in that auditorium had ended nearly 2 hours ago prior to my check. It isn't incredibly rare for people to have long conversations after their movie has ended, but 2 hours is a long time. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but I could tell they were a group of 2, a man and a woman. As I approached the end of the walkway and neared the corner to look up at the seats, the couple must have heard my footsteps or keys, because I very clearly heard the man say, "Hold on." I turned the corner and began to say something about us being closed and them needing to head out. Upon looking at the seats, I realized there was nobody there. I swear to God, I checked behind every seat in the auditorium, and behind the screen, absolutely nothing. Beside the entrance to the auditorium where I was walking up, the only other exits are 2 alarmed emergency doors on either side of the screen that lead outside. No alarms were set off, and I checked to make sure both were functional. Finally, I checked if, for any reason, there was some audio playing in the auditorium. The projector had completed its closing shutdown an hour and a half before I was in the theater. While still having no concrete explanation, I chalked it up to being tired and convinced myself I was just hearing things. Fast forward to a year later with nothing strange happening, and the second instance occurred. This night, instead of checking each auditorium on the ground level, I chose to look in through the small windows in the booth, the upstairs area containing the projectors. While the view of the auditorium below isn't perfect, the top-down view is still enough to tell if any stragglers are still hanging around. I got to auditorium number 9 and peering in, I noticed a couple holding hands in the middle 2 seats of the middle row. I could barely make out the top of 2 heads above the seats, and their hands resting on the cup holder separating them. Again, I was slightly annoyed as the last movie had broken hours prior, and at that point I had drawn no parallels between this night and the previous one sooner. Due to there being an employee staircase directly next to my location in booth, it took me about 45 seconds to go to the auditorium. Walking up, I heard the muffled voices of a man and woman, and at this point, there was a certain degree of déjà vu. Sure enough, upon nearing the corner, I heard the man say, "Hold on." Immediately realizing the similarity, I paused, took a breath, and turned the corner. Nobody was there. I freaked out, checked under every seat, behind the screen, and both alarm doors were not triggered. Furthermore, I knew for a fact that the projector was shut down, as I had been in booth 2 minutes prior. This time, I took it a step further in my search for an answer. I checked every exit camera in the theater, and there was nothing. I checked the outdoor cameras that view the exit doors of the auditorium. Again, nothing. Finally, I looked to the assigned seating chart for the last show in the auditorium. It was a Hindi-language Bollywood movie that had no tickets that day. Needless to say, I was incredibly uncomfortable, and it only got worse when I realized the date. I shit you not, it was January 8th, 2019. I confirmed the first time was the same date by checking a text conversation I had with a coworker that night, joking about how I was losing it tonight after the first instance. Again, I do not believe in ghosts or paranormal, but ever since the second instance, I have not checked Auditorium 9 on January 8th. I have thought about this a lot since, and I still have no possible clue as to what may have occurred. None of my fellow managers have experienced this, but I have also been the only one working the closing shift on January 8th, the last 5 years straight. If anyone has any theories, I'd be more than interested in hearing them. I recognize this story could probably be posted on R Paranormal on Reddit, but I don't really believe anything paranormal occurred here. I can provide any further details that are requested, but I'm not willing to share any information on where my location is or what company I work for. And to clarify, when I say I don't believe in ghosts or paranormal, I more so mean in the horror sense. Stuff like horror movie hauntings, throwing chairs, leaving messages in blood, that sort of thing. The Ghost Adventures TV show, for example. The idea of a moment or event being locked in time or souls unable to fully move on for whatever reason is something I'm open to and have considered here. I apologize for the closed-minded wording of my original post, and will avoid that if I ever need to post again. Thank you to everyone that mentioned this. 3. This happened last month in January of 23. My wife and I and our 18-year-old daughter live in a small home, 1,600 square feet, 3-2 and 2-car garage. We have been here 14 years. We know every nook and cranny. We have a water dispenser with 3 blue translucent bottles. We love our water, and when the bottles were empty, one of us goes to fill them up at the water station not too far away. My wife went to visit her relatives in Tennessee and flew out on day 1. I took her super early in the morning to the airport. As we were leaving for the airport, I noted to myself that all 3 bottles were empty, and I would need to refill them. When I got back from dropping her off, I did a bunch of chores and some work for my job, and in the afternoon decided to get some fresh air, get out of the house, and refill the bottles. except I could only find 2. I looked all over the house and could only find 2. At this point, I didn't think anything of it. I went to fill the 2 of them, but the machine was being serviced, so I returned home with no water. I left the 2 bottles in the SUV. Day 2, I once again looked for the missing bottle. It was nowhere to be found. It's not an easy thing to miss. It's a 2-foot tall by 1 foot in diameter blue bottle. We've had these bottles for years. 3 of them. 3 of us. Day 3, and it's now becoming weird. I call my daughter, who is house-sitting for friends, and ask if she has the bottle. Of course, being 18 and a wise-ass, she asks me if I'm ready for the senior care home. No, I don't have a giant blue bottle randomly in my car, she replies. I ask her to check her vehicle, which she does, and reports bottle not there. Day 3 and Day 4, I am looking everywhere. I'm openly declaring this a mystery. I call my wife and ask if she broke one and threw it in the recycling. No is the answer. I ask if she remembers anything, and again a flat no. Now, as I have said, it's not a large house we live in. There's only so many places a big blue water bottle can go. At the end of the 4th day, my daughter comes home to get some personal stuff, and I open the door to greet her. I explain how weird it is about the bottle, and I ask her to help me look. We both look everywhere, high and low, under tables and closets, everywhere, including the attic above the garage. We were standing in the garage, at the table next to the washer and dryer, discussing the possibilities. She suggests that perhaps I was loading them into the car and left it outside and someone swiped it. I said not a chance, since I reminded her that she filled all 3 bottles last time because I helped carry one of them inside when she returned home. We were both standing looking around the garage and declare it a mystery and move on with our day. Much later on, Day 4, my wife returns from her trip on a late flight. I pick her up from the airport. She travels light, so there's no luggage. We get home and go to sleep, as it is midnight. The next morning, I am making coffee and she goes to do laundry. She calls out from the garage, "Hey, that water bottle is right here on the table." My blood ran cold and I walk out to the garage. There on the old kitchen table that is under the fluorescent light where my daughter and I ended our search the day before is the missing blue bottle. It's sitting upright against a white wall beneath the bright light in the garage. I know over 4 days I looked at that spot. It's not hidden, it's not dark. She and I stood there on the previous day, looking all around, and ended the conversation at the table. My daughter was flummoxed as well, so my wife went away, and one of the 3 bottles disappeared. She came back, and it rematerialized. I'll never forget this. It happened, and I get creeped out whenever I think about it. 4. Preface. No drugs were involved and no history of schizophrenia, psychosis, etc. I want to add that this happened while I was laid off, and not long after, I also received a job offer using the same technique, a 55% raise over my last role, which was, well, paying to begin with. Okay, let's get into it now, guys. So this story might be the definition of fuck around and find out. I've been lurking on Reddit for a couple of months, and had originally tried to share this in a Neville Goddard sub, only for it to get denied, or just never see the light of day. Then I realized it might actually be better suited as a glitch. Long story short, I started tampering with the law of assumption a few months ago. If you're not familiar with it, the Neville Goddard sub is a good intro. The long and short of it, it's a specific manifestation technique. Anyway, there was one particular experiment I did that got me shocked for days. I know it may seem silly, but let me explain. This story goes back to early December last year. I was craving chicken pad thai one day and decided, you know what, let me try to do this with pad thai and prove that I can be specific. The intention behind this wasn't to get free pad thai, but to prove something unequivocally to myself. Choosing something trivial was just to make it easier. So I got to work with visualization, and a few days later, some friends invited me over for dinner. They made orange chicken and rice, and I tell the universe, or me, okay, close, but no, I want chicken pad thai. I go back to the drawing board and pinpoint what I need to change. This time I focused on seeing the noodles, scallions, the cashews, and chicken. I imagined the taste as best I could. I even imagined the place and manner in which this might happen, and then I just dropped it. Fast forward a couple of days, I was out doing Uber Eats for a bit, and just as I was about to head home, I got an order from this place I'd occasionally go to, but not often, and where I had gotten to know some of the guys. On my way I think, man, I'm so hungry, I hope they give me free food. Mind you, they hadn't given me any free food up to that point. They had zero knowledge that chicken pad thai is my favorite dish. On top of this, there also is storefront for 5 other virtual restaurants. Chinese food as their main one, then Vietnamese, Japanese, Thai, wings, and one other that I can't recall, meaning the menu options were at least 50 plus. Anyway, I pull up, and one of the guys I know is there, and he says, "You hungry?" And I go, yes, starved. And he goes, "I saved something. Been waiting all day to give it to someone special. Do you like chicken fried rice?" I love chicken fried rice. So it's established that it's chicken fried rice, allegedly. We chat a bit, and I leave with my free food, thinking, okay, not pad thai, but I'm still grateful. I'm mulling it over in my head while driving and pull over for my next pickup. As I'm sitting in my car, I glance over at the box and think, what if it's somehow chicken pad thai? For some reason, I suddenly get nervous and approach the box with trepidation. As I'm unpacking it, I stop cold when I had cracked it just enough to peek inside. You guys, I kid you not, inside was chicken pad thai. My jaw dropped and pretty sure I stopped breathing for a bit. As all of this is happening, some rando guy comes up to my window, asking for my number 2. "Excuse me, sir, but I'm a little busy having a meltdown right now." Anyway, it was so overwhelming that I bawled afterwards, and went on a very long drive that night. So it begs the question, what came first, the chicken fried rice or the chicken pad thai? Was it always chicken pad thai, or did I jump into a reality halfway through where it changed? As ridiculous as it sounds, this little bit of fuckery is what made me start exploring the possibility of parallel dimensions. Would love to hear your thoughts. 5. There is a scenic and popular lake in the city where I live, with a walking path and bike lane around its entire 3-mile circumference. From dawn till 8 p.m., there is a wholesome delivery of runners training for 5Ks, roller skaters, strolling families, and the like on the paved path. This past Sunday, I walked to the lake to lift a mildly sullen mood after spending the day in the house. I arrived at 6 p.m., knowing I'd watch the sunset at 6:30 and finish the loop around 7 p.m. I chose to walk here because the lake is well lit and still populated and completely safe after dusk. The sunset was beautiful, and I was in better spirits nearing the end of my walk. I'm a local, and this lake is a comfort and a feature of home that I have been circling my whole life. My head felt clearer, my thoughts quieted, just listening to music in my headphones. The paved path is not particularly wide, and people pass politely in both directions. A slight young girl who looked to be around 8 in pink clothing with long brown hair streaming down her back rode her bike past me on my left. She was going in the same direction and pedaling at a brisk pace. I watched her under the streetlights for maybe a few hundred feet, in a straight line up the path, passing some others until she disappeared from view. She caught my attention, unlike other passers-by, because she was young and it was already dark, and she seemed to be alone. But I smiled to myself, reflecting on how safe it is here, on her zest and her long brown hair. It looked like mine and how I've worn it since her age. I wondered if she lived in one of the mansions that surrounded the prime real estate of the lake. Maybe 2 minutes later, the exact same girl in the exact same way, at the exact same pace, as if replayed, rode her bike past me going my same direction. Except this time, after say 100 feet or so, she braked, pulling her feet down from a skid to a stop, turned and pedaled past me going the opposite direction. As I continued to walk, she seemed to be making short laps now, like she may be waiting for someone she was to catch up with. Pedaling in the opposite direction, braking to a stop, changing direction, and passing me one more time to brake and turn a second time at the same place 100 feet forward. Now just a few feet in front of me. What would make sense is that she'd been making laps the entire time, and I just missed noticing her passing me in the opposite direction after the first time I saw her retreat in the distance. And she made her turn out of view. This does not really add up, though. The timing is wrong and the path is narrow. Doesn't feel possible she passed me coming towards me, and I was oblivious to it. The only other way for her to come from behind me again would be for her to have traversed the entire 3-mile loop in 2 minutes. What's funny is when I observed the glitch, I decided to ignore it for the moment and finish my walk because it was mostly just annoying. I'm plagued by that retcon life and experience reality as strange and shifty. I don't talk about it much because I don't feel like defending my sanity or being locked in a psych ward. I thought, can I not just enjoy a pleasant walk without being provoked to question this reality, please? I am always and was completely sober. Ironically, for the first time in years, I had rewatched The Matrix earlier that day. 6. Okay, I'm really freaked out. I know I've had glitches in the past, but it's been a while. My apartment overlooks a big freeway. My bathroom and kitchen window, you can see everything on the freeway. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen horrific wrecks that have shook my place. When I went to use the restroom, my toilet is right there by the window, so you always see what's going on. I came across 5 cop cars, 1 wrecker, fire trucks, and 2 cars. The first car was white, and then about 8 feet behind it was another car. The wrecker was in front of everything and hasn't even dropped the bed or anything yet. Normally, I'd just glance over and feel shitty of what I'm seeing and move on. This time it was different because it looked like there was a bunch of rescue people in the car in the back, and there was stuff they pulled out all over the ground, but the cars didn't look wrecked, and normally there isn't that many cop cars unless it's a crime. However, I can't see that good because I need my glasses to see small details, and I was curious what they were doing in that car and what was on the ground. Was it a shooting? Another weird thing is I didn't hear any wreck like I normally do, or anything until I looked out the window. So I thought I was going to run out to my car and get my glasses because I use them for driving. As I went down, I also passed my kitchen window and saw all the red lights flashing. Just a few seconds to go down the stairs and a few more seconds to my car, got my glasses, came back up in a matter of 2 minutes tops, and then look out the window, and all of it was gone. There is no evidence of anything, not even debris on the ground. There is no way that one wrecker that didn't even have his bed down moved 2 cars. No way that all of a sudden what was pulled out of that car would have been put back completely in with no trace and gone in 2 minutes. What the heck just happened? The feeling you get when something like this happens to you is a split second of, did I just lose time? I know I'm not crazy. Did any of this really happen? About 20 years ago, I had another experience living by the freeway, with some wrecks, but nothing like this, but still crazy. What happened was I heard a wreck, called it in, and they came out. The person was deceased. I watched them clean it all up and went to bed. Then, 30 minutes later, heard a wreck, jumped back and looked out my window, and it looked like the exact same wreck. I called that one in too, and I even told them there was a prior wreck that exact same way on this location. And then I started questioning 911, asking did they properly clean up the area. As I watched the second wreck, it was pretty much identical. The person was deceased in the exact same way the first person died. In the morning, I checked out the news, and what happened was both cars went up the wrong way ramp at the same location hours apart, and both got decapitated in the same spot. The ramp appeared to have no problems or indications that would have directed people onto it instead of off. I knew then that something weird happens that's unexplainable. Even more weird, I later checked out our city's incident report, and it's not on there. 7. About 3 years ago, my partner and I lived in a top-floor flat, 5th floor, no elevator, stairs only flat on the floor. It was okay sized, but small enough that you could hear anything going on from any room, really. They were all very close together. There was one corridor connecting all the rooms, so you'd cross each other if you were changing rooms. I was working a late shift, got in around 11:30 p.m.-ish, maybe midnight. Boyfriend was obviously already in bed, so I came in and went straight to the bathroom to wash up, get changed and wind down, etc. Pottered in the kitchen for maybe 10 minutes and had a drink, then headed into the bedroom for the night. I get in and I can't see my boyfriend, presume he's just rolled in the duvet or something. So I go over and move the duvet, and he's literally not in bed. I move the whole duvet back. He's not there. I turn the light, okay. Check the whole room, top to bottom. Thought he may be pranking me, waiting to jump out or something. Nope, not there. First thought is, okay, maybe he's in the spare room on his computer having a late night. Nope. In the bathroom, and we just missed each other's paths somehow. Nope. I check the whole flat, top to bottom, every room. The door is still locked. He is genuinely nowhere. I would hear him if he was sleepwalking or something. Getting panicked, I text him, "This is important, where are you?" Maybe there's some crazy reason he's gone for a walk or something, I don't know. No response after a few minutes, so I decide to check around one last time. I go to the bathroom. He's in bed. The light's off. He's snoring as if he's been out of it for hours. I wake him up and explain everything that just happened. He groggily suggests I was dreaming. But he checks his phone and the text is there, plain as day. It definitely happened. He's convinced to this day he was asleep the whole time. The whole thing is bizarre to me. He definitely wasn't there. Where the fuck did he go? He's obviously certain he was asleep in bed the whole time, but the text proves I wasn't dreaming, and I know he wasn't there. Why would I panic and text otherwise? To this day, I have no idea what happened, and I don't think I ever will. People I tell this story to are also just as perplexed. I don't think they believe me. 8. So, I work at a bar, and I'm the only daytime bartender available on staff at the moment. One of my main jobs is to make sure liquor and beer are stocked and ready for the dinner rush. When it's slow, I literally fully stock it to the brim as much as possible. Sell 3 beers, go get those 3 to replace them, etc. So it's like 2 a.m., and I notice we have some holes in the beer stock. I have a slow period, so I write a list: 1 Coors Light, 2 Lager, 1 bottle vodka, 1 bottle Mezcal, 1 bottle Merlot. I take my list upstairs to her stockroom to go grab the items. I remember grabbing the Coors Light and commenting to myself, the 24-pack is in a different place than it usually is, which makes me look at the bottle as I pick it up, and I clearly read Coors Light. Okay, cool. I get my items and head back down to the bar to put them in the respective homes. Here's where things get interesting. The missing beer that I wrote down as Coors Light is not missing. The Coors are fully stocked. The Miller Lite next to it, however, is missing 1 single beer. Okay, no big deal, I must have mistaken the brand. It happens. Instead of going back upstairs to trade beers, I decide to put the Coors Light on the empty bottom shelf and decide to grab a Miller Lite later. So that's what I do. I put a single bottle of Coors Light on the bottom shelf. I close the cooler and go about doing some other work for the next shift. About half an hour later, a few of my regulars come in, and I know one lady likes Bud Light, so I turn around to grab it out of the cooler, and I see that the cooler's light on the bottom shelf is different. The Coors Light that I almost dropped on my way down the stairs to place in its home, the Coors Light that I stared at 3 separate times and made mental notes about, is gone. In its place, a bottle of Miller Lite. Miller Lite, not Coors Light. No one was behind my bar but me. I will swear whatever you want me to. I am dead certain that beer was a Coors Light. But sitting in its place on the bottom shelf is a single bottle of Miller Lite. The crazy thing is, today, within the same 4-hour period, 3 separate people in my immediate world had glitch stories of their own. I'm a mild follower, but I am now 100% convinced the Matrix glitched today. 9. It was late in the afternoon. I was in a house secluded in the heights of St. Joseph. The exact location is not given for anonymity reasons, part of which was under renovation. My husband was a mason, and he had several construction sites. When he could, on weekends, he worked on the house to make progress on the work as he could. There were concrete rubble and sometimes sharp iron rods and pieces of sharp metal in a corner of the courtyard. For now, it's a detail that will be important later. Anyway, I was with my 4-year-old child, and my husband was about to come home from work. I was doing my household chores inside, and my child was playing in the large room. Then I heard my husband's car driving on the dirt road to get to us. My son also heard it, and as usual, he ran shouting, "Dad!" He went out through the front door and went to wait for his father in front of the house on the concrete driveway. It should be noted that afternoon, the weather is cloudy and gray. A few seconds after my son went out to wait for his father outside, it started to rain, and so I ran out to both pick up my laundry and tell my child to come inside. Once in front of my clothesline, and after picking up a few, I looked to my left to see if my son was at the end of the concrete driveway, but he was not. Suddenly I heard the sound of stones and metal rubbing on my right. I turned my head and saw my son playing in the rubble, and I shouted his name, promising to spank him if he didn't get out immediately because, yes, the rubble was on my right. He was sitting crouching in it, his back to me, and he was ignoring my shout, which was nevertheless powerful. Once the laundry was picked up in a few seconds, I issued a final ultimatum to my son, but still nothing, still ignoring me. So I quickly went inside to drop off the laundry basket, so I could go back out and retrieve my child from this dangerous pile of rubble. But when I got inside, I almost had a heart attack. My husband was there, with our child in his arms, having entered through the back door. In total panic, I still hurriedly dropped off the laundry basket and went back out to see who was in the rubble. And once outside, no one was there. I went back inside and asked my husband if he had taken our child. Of course, the question was absurd because he couldn't have taken the child into the rubble, gone into the house, and come back in through the back door in such a short time. I would have seen him anyway. But my Cartesian mind couldn't believe otherwise, so I insisted on him answering the question. But his answer was striking. He told me that he had picked up our child at the end of the driveway. They had gone into the car together, and he had driven slowly to the back of the house to take a short ride with the son because he loved it. It was true that I had forgotten that it was our son's habit, and every time his father came home, he asked him to take a ride in the car. So when I went out to pick up my laundry and didn't see him at the end of the concrete driveway, it meant he was already in the car with his father, slowly driving to the backyard. But that's when I saw a child in the rubble, who vanished in 5 to 10 seconds, the time it took to put down the basket. Now a few important points to clarify. It couldn't have been the neighbor's child. The closest neighbor was 1 kilometer away because in 88 we lived on several hectares of agricultural land. There were very few houses then, unlike now, where house constructions are common. Also, the child I saw looked like my son in every way, but in the rubble, he was wearing a red t-shirt, whereas in fact, all day that day, he was wearing a yellow t-shirt. But at the time, I didn't realize it. With the stress of seeing what I thought was my child in dangerous rubble and rushing to pick up my laundry in the rain, everything happened in almost 2 minutes. Was it a ghost? I don't know. All I can tell you is that it looked real as you and me. 10. Hello, I'm a married mother of 4. Last night I'm pretty sure my 9-year-old son glitched. So last night I went to take a shower and enjoy some peace for about a good 20 minutes. Of course, the kids came knocking anyways, and I made them go away. Meanwhile, their dad was downstairs cooking while my 6-year-old daughter Kay and my son Jay were on their devices. I get out of the shower and come downstairs. Their dad asked, "Where's Jay?" And I said, "I don't know, I was taking a shower. He must be upstairs with his other siblings," because he knocked on the door and was trying to talk to me shortly before I got out. About 10 minutes pass. and the dad calls Jay multiple times and got no response. Then Kay, the 6-year-old, says Jay ran away. He went out the door. So I say search the house because he's got to be around here somewhere. Meanwhile, I go search the neighborhood. Now, just to be clear, the only unlocked door or window was the front door, and it was loud when you open it. The back door was open, but I closed and locked it just in case the little guy decided to come through the window without getting caught. I searched the neighborhood and no Jay. Call around to a couple of neighbors and they haven't seen him. By this time, worry sets in because we're in Michigan, it's cold and dark out, and he didn't have his coat. So the police were called, searching the house and surrounding areas. They searched the neighborhood, the playground, near a small wooded area to no avail. Now at this point we were wondering if Jay was in the house. We allowed them to search the house. They searched every room, closet, basement, and cabinets twice. Nope. So now they're on their walkie-talkies, calling a K9 unit. My 8-year-old daughter asked to show her dad and the police where his friends live so they can check there. She went to the closet and said so matter-of-factly, "Found him." I'm like, huh. He was in the coat closet, a place that was searched twice by the officers and by us. I know my son is good at hiding, but how did we all not see him? The closet is small and there's not much in it. My thoughts were that he teleported. It's strange because before the police arrived, I was talking to my other kids saying that if Jay glitched and he disappeared and came back. After the cops left, I said to Jay, "How did you end up in the closet and how did you not hear us?" He said he doesn't know. He said he was running away and somehow woke up in the closet. I'm so confused and my mind is blown. But I'm glad he's back. 11. So this glitch I witnessed happen in June 2022 when I was on a work trip. It still bothers me and makes me question it to this day. I work as a private stewardess on board a motor yacht. This job requires me to travel very often, so I spend a lot of time at Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island in the Bahamas. One day, when I was off, my crew and I decided to go to the beach that is part of the Atlantis Resort. Only people staying at the hotel or marina can access. It was myself and 2 of my other crewmates who decided to go. Our boat was docked in the Marina Village, part of the resort, but the beach was about a 20-minute power walk through the hotel and casino, and breezeways outside. So we left the boat, and the first place we had to walk through was the casino. Mind you, there are a lot of stairs to climb just to get into it, probably about 50, and many other stairs throughout the walk. These 2 crewmates are good friends of mine, and were always walking and making jokes with each other. We talked pretty much the entire walk. As we're walking through the casino, I noticed a lady, maybe in her 30s, standing near a machine, with a stroller digging through her purse, looking for something. She stood out to me because I really liked the aesthetic dress and gym shoes she was wearing, although I usually like a lot of people's outfits, so it wasn't a weird thing for me to notice. I didn't feel the need to point her out to my crewmates, because they were both guys and wouldn't appreciate her outfit as much as I did. The 3 of us continue walking at a swift pace through the casino, the lobby, and the outside breezeway paths, many random stairs. Eventually, after a solid 15 minutes of walking, we approach the kids' arcade and daycare center. As we walk past it, I was shook. The woman in the athletic dress and stroller was in front of us, waiting in line at the daycare, as if she had been standing there for a bit. In my mind, I thought there is no way she could have gotten there before we did. There's just no way. There are way too many stairs for her to have done by herself, especially with a stroller and a small child in it. What gets me is it seemed as if she was standing there waiting for a bit. I thought about when we walked past her in the casino. She was rummaging through her purse looking for a phone or something, and had no intentions of leaving right after we passed. I didn't say anything to my crewmates when we walked past her because I was making sure it was definitely her. As soon as we walked past, one of my crew goes, "Is it just me or was she in the casino when we left?" I couldn't be happier when he said it, because it was confirmation that I wasn't the only one who had witnessed this. He and I both noticed her and thought of the exact same reasoning as to how it would have been impossible for her to have beat us there. It was a really strange coincidence, and I just do not think she could have walked faster than the three of us, especially with the stroller to push and carry and down the stairs. Since we spend so much time at Atlantis, we are for sure certain that the way we walked is the fastest way to get there. If there were any shortcuts, we would know about them. He and I still talk about how weird that encounter was. The whole time we were there at the beach, we were discussing how the only logical explanation was that it had to be a glitch in the Matrix. Anyone else experienced this or something very similar? It bothers me so much and I need to know the truth. 12. The further I research into this rabbit hole, the more things make sense. Items disappearing, seeing familiar friends where they are not, teleporting, and even quantum immortality. So when I read about the theory where you die, your consciousness travels to another you in another dimension, I started to think, well, if that happens, why do people die? Well, they die in your dimension and transport to another. Well, then why do ghosts exist? If they do, it's the body's energy that lingers. The person's consciousness is what moves to the next dimension. When I think about the Mandela effects I have witnessed, I realize that I might have died. As a kid, I was awkward with interacting with other kids. When I found out that one of my friends, or acquaintance, walked home slightly in the same way as I did, I got excited. Maybe too excited. While we were talking, I randomly grabbed his book bag. I have no idea why. We might have been flirting. By the way, I'm a guy, just to get that clear. I ran playing keep away. Seriously, I don't do this. While running, I tripped. I fell right by this decorative log that was separating two parking lots. They had metal beams sticking out of the sides of the log, to keep in place, I guess. I saw a beam heading straight for my eyes as I fell. Then I rolled over, holding my knee. I was about 2 feet away from the log. All I got was a scraped knee. What in the... I thought I just watched you fall into that spike, my friend yelled at me. I stood up and handed him his bag. I walked home in silence. I couldn't comprehend what just happened. I didn't want to think about what could have happened. Fast forward to when I was a teen. I was having issues with my family that led to panic attack blackouts. We didn't know that those were what was happening. We thought they were seizures. So the frustration of not knowing what was happening, on top of the issues I already had, on top of being angry at my parents for ignoring me when I had a blackout, had caused me to have one of the weirdest, scariest blackouts ever. I got dizzy, I lost feeling of just about everything, and my body just did an impression of ragdoll physics. My chest hurt, I couldn't breathe, I couldn't see. No, wait. There is someone standing next to me. The floor just swayed. Why is there moaning? I blinked and looked around. I was in a raft of some form. The water around me was filled with a bunch of people swimming around, and a guy next to me was a robed figure following us across the water using a scythe. I sat there in stunned silence. Then I woke up, coughed and gasped and sat up. Oh, you okay? I was out for about half an hour, apparently. Now, this is very unlikely to be a near-death experience, but it was still freaky. So, I'm an adult. Well, at least the number says so. I'm moving stuff from house to house. My mother, and by then by proxy myself, were hoarders. Not borderline, not somewhat. We had a lot of junk boxed up that we needed to keep moving with us. I'm still trying to dig myself out of a hoarding situation. What? I love my action figures. So anyways, my younger brother was helping us out. Every time there was a large or heavy object to move, I wouldn't let my brother or friend Nick carry these. If anyone is to die hauling my crap around, it would be me, I kept joking around. The stairwell leading from the top floor to the bottom was a half-spiral staircase. For some reason, and as you could have probably predicted, I made it down these steps okay. No, it was the front porch steps that was the problem. 4 steps. 4 goddamn steps. I carried this kitchen island thing down the steps and my ankle rolled. I dropped this monster of a furniture and fell directly on top of it. I had enough time to think, well, I'm dead, before I slammed down onto this thing. I heard Nikki yell, Railuge! And I just bounced right off the furniture. This is the best description because I heard my mother's friend Rick say, I've never seen anyone bounce back up like that before. He was 30 years my senior, and he was driving the truck, so I was not going to ask him to haul things. I inspected my face. Sure, there was going to be some form of injury, right? Nope, teeth still intact. My nose still there, both eyes are working. Not even a scratch on my face. Both of my knees got torn up, though. I had to go into therapy after this. There are some more, but these are the 3 major events that I can think of. So you know when they say on Dragon Ball Z, I will send you to the next dimension? When they're going to kill someone? Well, I think that we're onto something. 13. This happened to me when I was in college. I woke around 7:15 a.m. like I usually did, and walked across the room to turn off my alarm. I headed into the bathroom, then back to my room to get dressed. I then sat down at my desk to print something out. The time was now 7:25. A friend of mine I usually had breakfast with would call me if I wasn't at the dining room doors shortly before they opened at 7:30. I figured she was running late. As I walked out the door, I noticed the angles of the hallway appeared to be off, as if the dimensions didn't quite make sense. I didn't think much of it as I locked the door and headed out the front door. When I got outside, the colors of everything in addition to the lighting seemed off. It's hard to explain, but it had a weird aura, and I got a sense it wasn't right. As I entered the dining hall, I picked up a copy of USA Today, and I noticed my friend wasn't there and the door wasn't open. I checked my watch, and it was just after 7:30. This sometimes happened, the door wouldn't be open. Just after the door opened and I was about to greet the person, I felt this forceful push and this evil presence as if to say, "You don't belong here." Next thing I know, I'm sitting on my chair in my room, and my friend calls me wondering where I am. I checked the time, and it was 7:30. I answered and told her I'd be a few minutes late and to just head in. I also realized I had no papers due that day. To this day, I have never been able to explain what transpired. Did I enter another universe temporarily? 14. So, I live close to an intersection of 2 main roads. Road A heading north-south and Road B heading west-east. I live on Road A. On the corner of this intersection is a collection of 3 small shops that share the same building. I live 2 driveways up from that, roughly 250 meters from the intersection. My sister lives off a service road of Road B, about 10 houses up, roughly 450 meters from the intersection. I know this is specific, but it is relevant. It's about a 6-minute walk from my house to hers. The walk to the entrance of the service road would be about a 4 or 5-minute walk. Not to mention there is a relative incline at the beginning of Road B. I had to run to my sister's house as she tends to borrow things without telling me and forgets to bring them back. I needed to grab my vacuum. I went to get it in my car and remembered that it was bin day. I proceeded to grab my bin and begin walking it to the side of the road, where at the end of my driveway there was a couple walking by, heading up my street, north, away from the intersection. A man in a green tracksuit, which I thought to be quite the look for a man of his age, and the woman in a similar pink tracksuit. They looked to be in their later years, I'd say 60s, after a polite little back and forth. "You go, no you go." I allowed them to pass first. I rolled my bin to the curb and got in my car and pulled to the end of my driveway to do a loop through 2 back roads to avoid traffic lights and cars, etc. They all left and left again if you're in Australia. I timed the trip. It takes approximately 1 minute and 25 seconds to make the car ride. I'd be happy to give them 2 minutes if it's busy, and I can't turn around onto Road B from the back road. However, it wasn't busy, as it was 11 a.m. on a Sunday. As I turned left out of my driveway, I saw the couple had proceeded maybe another 50 meters before crossing the street now from the left side, which we were originally on the right side of the road, and stopped to look at some furniture that was on the street for hard rubbish collection. I proceed with my 1.5-minute drive to my sister's when pulling into the service road. Who do I see? The couple in their tracksuits, now heading towards my sister's house. Now I know it was them again because I had to stop and let them pass as the service road is gravel, and to avoid a large pothole, you need to drive slightly on the footpath. So I have a good 5 to 10 seconds of taking this all in before I can drive past. I stop at my sister's driveway, very confused as I get out to open her gate. They walk by with no interaction at all, even if it was possible that these people are marathon sprinters who were heading north, and a minute later were heading west and uphill without breaking a single sweat in their 60s, covering a distance that even me as a 27-year-old female couldn't cover in that time. I had literally just interacted with them within minutes, and they acted like I was a stranger. I do know I am a stranger, but not even confusion. It's just like they were literally copied and pasted, and I just can't work it out. I have got my sister to walk from the spot I last saw them towards her house from when I turned down the first side street, and she can't make it there before me without breaking into a sprint. So to Mr. Green and his little wife, if you were Usain Bolt in disguise, you got me. If not, your programmer's messed up. 15. So this past winter, I, a 27-year-old female, went with my mom on vacation to a very small town in the middle of a huge ecological park that consists of kilometers upon kilometers of desert. It's not the first time we've gone there on vacation. We just love how calm and quiet it is, the beautiful scenery, and the kind people who live in that town. Now, since it's a very small town, there's just one hotel with 5 rooms and 3 bathrooms. 2 of the 3 bathrooms are inside the restaurant that's attached to the hotel, and to get to them from any of the rooms you have to pass through various sets of doors. Because of this, at night, we only used the other bathroom, which was a metal door on the other side of a small patio. I remember that the first day at the hotel I went to the bathroom, and when I tried to close the door, I couldn't close it fully because there was a crack in the wall the door was attached to. There had been an earthquake a few years prior, which was probably the culprit for this crack. Since the last time we stayed at that hotel many years ago, it wasn't there. As a result, we had to tie a string from the back to the nail in the wall inside the bathroom in order to close it, and even then, it never fully closed. It annoyed me, but we weren't paying much, and we were the only ones staying at the hotel anyways. Well, here's how the glitch happened. It was our 3rd day staying at the hotel, and we had just came back from a walk up a nearby mount. Very small, the walk barely lasted an hour. It was still fairly early night, around 10 p.m., and my mom said she was going to get ready for bed. I told her to go ahead because I wanted to stargaze for a little while, taking advantage of the cloudless sky. I did so for about an hour or so before deciding it was time to also get ready for bed. I went to our room, got my toothbrush and toothpaste, and then went to the bathroom. As soon as I stepped inside, everything felt off. I reached for the light switch, but it wasn't there. I searched for it to no avail, and then, when my eyes got used to the darkness, I saw it was on the opposite wall, the one that had the crack. Except when I turned on the light, I realized there was no crack. Also, I was able to close the door perfectly, and there was no string or nail to tie it in place. It was as if it was an entirely different bathroom, but everything else was the same. The tiles on the walls, a slightly rusted mirror, the cheap-looking head shower, the white sink with a pink soap. Everything was the same as I remembered except for the cracked wall and the light switch. It was as if for the time I took to brush my teeth, I was in an alternate timeline in which the earthquake didn't happen. The wall crack and light switch wasn't moved to another wall. It was a very surreal experience. And the more I stayed there, the more nervous I became, so I hurried up, turned off the light, and pretty much sprinted towards my room. My mom was already asleep, so I decided not to bother her. But it took a while before I could sleep because I was feeling very unnerved. The next day, the sun now illuminating everything, I went back to check on the bathroom that had scared me so much the previous night. But it was exactly as it should be, crack and all. I haven't been able to make much sense of this situation, despite how much I've thought about it. 16. This was the weirdest experience I've had to date, and I still get choked up and emotional when I think about it. It was 2010, and I was 25 years old, living at home with my very supportive parents, who were helping me through college, after previously dropping out of high school and having two amazing children. It was an early autumn afternoon, around 4 or 5 p.m. I was in my room and doing some homework on my laptop at my desk. The desk faced the wall directly across from my bed, and my older-style box TV was on top of my dresser, to the left of my desk, about 2 feet away. I was, as usual, procrastinating doing my homework, so I was mindlessly watching some dumb TV show. Because my TV was so close, I stood up instead of using the remote to change the volume on my TV. As I reached out my left hand to press the button, as if a switch flipped, my entire environment changed. This affects me still to this day. I still feel it in my soul that something strange happened. I didn't hallucinate, it was real. I was back in my childhood home, some 20 miles away, and seemingly 18 years in the past. I was standing in front of the only hallway closet in the one-bedroom house that I grew up in. The house was over 100 years old, and the closet was one of those with the doors that slide open on tracks. You know the ones that the doors never go back on the tracks, right? So you must be careful how you open it. Anyway, the door to the closet was open, and my already outstretched left arm was reaching toward a very distinct item. When I was little, my mother had this perfume bottle that for some reason I was absolutely in love with. The perfume itself was cheap and didn't smell particularly good to me. The bottle was glass and shaped like a bird, maybe a dove. Its wings were up and outstretched. It was beautiful. But it had a broken wing, which I probably broke, being the curious and clumsy child I was and still am. So there I was, one moment in my somewhat modern bedroom in 2010, the next in the old one-bedroom hallway across town, back in time, 18 years. I was there. I saw the bird bottle. I was within inches of grabbing it. My heart melted for that dumb bottle of stinky perfume shaped like a one-winged dove. Oh my God. This is not a Fleetwood Mac song, I swear. Before my hand could actually make physical contact with that precious bird, the switch flipped again. I was back in front of my TV, outstretched left hand and all. My mind could not comprehend what had just happened, and I felt immediately sick and dizzy. I was in such a state of shock and confusion that I just walked out of my room, down the hall, into the living room, and out into the front yard. I could do nothing but lurch over, hands on my knees, and try desperately to catch my breath. But mostly, my sanity. This experience was so jarring, so real. I was physically in front of that open closet reaching for that damn bird bottle, then I wasn't. I wasn't particularly stressed about classes, it was community college. I'm not prone to hallucinations and was stone-cold sober when this experience happened. I've only told a few people because, honestly, the subject of momentarily teleporting through time and space doesn't come up in conversation often, and I only know a few people that I can tell. Has anyone had anything like this happen? I still have no explanation, and it might have just been a weird break in psyche. But it was not a dream, and I was not under the influence of anything or under any unusual stress. 17. Last year, I, a 23-year-old female, moved into my grandma's house to look after her. She lives on a big property with a field and orchard, large garden, and a dingle at the bottom of the driveway. I know this place like the back of my hand. I've visited here since I was a child. We also have a neighbor whom I've met a few times. He has a wife who baked us a bunch of really beautiful cupcakes that her husband brought over. However, at the start of this story, I've never met her. So a couple of days ago, I wanted to repay the favor, so I made a batch of 20 brownies with my sister and started my walk to their house. As I'm walking down the driveway, I snuck one out to eat myself because I figured I'd earned it. So I'm walking and eating. The geography of it is a bit weird to describe, but essentially, their house is on an embankment above my grandma's driveway, which leads to the main road. To get there without trespassing on their land, I'd have to walk to the main road and then head up the hill to a side road and enter their driveway that way. This day I got the dingle at the bottom of the driveway and felt lazy. What's the point in going all the way around when I can just enter through their gate at the bottom here? I had been to their house many times as a child when my grandma's friends still lived there, so I actually knew their house quite well. Those friends passed away a couple of years ago, so this couple moved in about the same time I moved in with my grandma. The gate leads to a little path that goes through their back garden. It's a really steep back garden that mostly consists of wide wooden steps all the way across with plants and garden gnomes on each one. It's pretty picturesque, honestly. As I was walking up their garden, feeling self-conscious about trespassing but actually not giving enough of a shit not to, I tripped on one of the steps. I have dyspraxia. I face-planted because I was holding brownies and didn't want to drop them. I ended up tumbling over a couple of steps too. As I'm lying there, shocked and a little pained, I hear the neighbor's wife come running down the garden. She was asking if I was okay, obviously surprised to see me there. Bear in mind she'd never seen my face before, so she must have been extra baffled. I told her I was just there to drop off some brownies I'd baked, but as I'm saying it, I noticed the tub of brownies is just missing. I was literally holding them 30 seconds before. Cue extreme embarrassment. I assumed they'd fallen down the garden somehow in my fall. But this isn't a small tub, it's relatively big, and there's no sign of it anywhere. After 10 minutes of looking, I admit defeat and tell her the story. I'll make some more and bring them some other time. Red-faced, I retreat back to my grandma's house. Then yesterday, I decide to go and sit in my grandma's orchard with my cat. He's a pretty weird cat, used to be a stray, and you get better bonding time with him by chilling in a tree with him than you do by giving him dreamies and pets or whatever. So my cat and I are chilling in a tree in Grandma's orchard, when he suddenly jumps down and jogs all giddy-like to the shed at the back of the orchard. It's a really decrepit shed that hasn't been opened since like 2006. It could contain gold bars and I wouldn't have a clue. I thought he just saw a mouse or something, but I was curious, so I followed him. There's a ditch filled with nettles and brambles right outside the shed, and I notice my cat is trying to find a pain-free way to get in the bushes there. I'm like, WTF, you're fighting a losing battle there, my guy. It looks up at me and meows, which is weird in itself because this animal never meows. Like it doesn't really know how, stray and all. I'm taken aback. Like, what do you want to tell me to do, little man? That's when I see it. The corner of a box that looks very familiar to something I lost peeking out from beneath a bunch of fully war-torn nettles. But I have jeans on, and the pain tolerance of my ancestors, so I waded in and edged out. Lo and behold, it's my tub of brownies. I can't really describe the degree of absolute confusion I felt at this moment. You ever get that vibe, that there's a bunch of calculations going on just outside your field of view that you will never comprehend? My cat was freaked out about it. Didn't like the tub at all. That's not completely out of character for him, because he can be skittish sometimes with no explicable reason. But I let him sniff the box, and then he bopped away with his back all puffed. Extremely bewildered, I took the box inside and opened it. I counted the brownies. There's 19, which accounts for the one I'd eaten on my way down. They're still completely fresh, and taste delicious. I ate another one, so I figured I'll take it over. I go to my neighbor's, this time the long way around, and knock on the door, and it's the wife. I apologize profusely for the last time and hand her the tub. She was looking at me a little perplexed, and then she said, "I don't think we've met before, have we?" I'm pretty sure this is the moment in most video games where the protagonist loses her absolute marbles and becomes an anti-hero with wild mental health issues. I described to her the last time, and she has no memory of it at all. But I recognized her. It definitely happened. So I dip again, embarrassed once more, and this is the point I'm at now. Explanations, people? 18. This happened to me thrice in that apartment. The way the bathroom was set up meant it had 2 rooms, one for the bathroom and shower, and the other for the sinks and cabinets. The trash can was between the toilet and shower, so it couldn't have made it into there. We checked the hallways each time, too. This only happened at my old apartment. We called the bathroom the Black Hole. I was doing my hair for a party and dropped one of my small scrunchies and couldn't find it. I called my roommate in, and she and I both took everything out of the bathroom, the rolling shelves, etc. Everything off the shelves, everything out of the drawers and cabinets, and we still couldn't find it. It was a bright yellow scrunchie, so it shouldn't have been hard to find. The second time, my roommate and I were doing our makeup together, and the head of one of my makeup brushes fell off. My roommate and I both watched it bounce off the sink counter, bounce into the floor, and go under the little lip where the cabinet door hangs out a little bit. I immediately bent down to grab it, but couldn't find it. Cue the deconstructing of the bathroom once again, while me and all my other roommates took turns looking for it. Even after we all moved out and scrubbed the place top to bottom, we never found it. Even though the door to the bathroom was closed, we opened it and looked in the hallway too. The third time my roommate was watching me do my makeup again when I lost another brush head. It was literally the same type of brush, just new. Changed brushes since then. Their glue obviously wasn't the best. One of the boyfriends of a roommate helped us this time too, because he didn't believe us about the last time, and the 5 of us had no luck. That apartment complex always had weird-ass juju, but that was the third apartment in that complex I had been in, and nothing like this has ever happened. When we moved out, I had one of my exes and a friend come to help me look through my stuff and the bathroom, because I was still so confused, and still no luck. 19. This happened a few months ago, and it still bothers me, so I'm a very detailed and organized person. Less is more in regards to my living space. My room is almost always in order, but most importantly to note, everything has a place. So if it's not in its place, I know it's missing. I also hate losing things, so I'm hyper-aware of where my belongings are. I have a cup on my shelf that I store pens and markers in. I vetted every pen and marker before it went in there, and frankly, don't use them that often. But I still like to know they're all worthy of use and that I'm not collecting junk. This is just to note that I'm familiar with what I have in there because I loathe clutter. What I also keep in there is a letter opener and a great pair of scissors that I kept from an office job many years ago. Those items I use quite often. At some point, last year, the scissors went missing. Even though I do live with my family, I have my own floor and we don't really go into each other's spaces. We live more like roommates, especially in the sense that we have many of our own common items rather than communal ones, including scissors. I was annoyed and asked everyone for a while if they had seen my scissors or came into my room and took them, to which they all denied. Over the next few months, instead of just getting new scissors, I would just get really annoyed every time I needed one and went to grab them, only to be reminded that they were still missing. So one day I go to remove one of those event bracelets from my wrist that I got from going out the night before. Out of habit, I go to get the scissors, forgetting once again that they've been missing for months. I take the letter opener instead, I know, risky, and tell myself, that's it, just take the extra little black scissors home from work that you've had at your desk for ages. I use the letter opener to remove the bracelet, put it back, and that's it. The next day, I, of course, forget to bring the scissors home from work. I work in a shared office space, so most of the supplies are communal, and those scissors hadn't crossed my line of sight that day to remind me to bring them home. When I get home, I do have a ton of mail to open, though, so I grab my letter opener, and when I tell you my heart dropped into my stomach when I did not see the letter opener, but the scissors that have been missing for months, I just stared at them in disbelief. I then asked all of my family members which one of them had randomly returned my scissors that they all denied taking all those months ago. After the initial blatant denial to my question, I was practically begging them to tell me they returned them because I needed an explanation. But my parents and brothers said they have no idea what I'm talking about. I begged them to tell me they were playing a joke on me, knowing they aren't the pranking type, but still needing an explanation. None of them even remembered me asking about these missing scissors months ago in the first place, and truthfully thought I was crazy and annoying for going on and on about scissors all night. I was pretty freaked out, and my denial and confusion made me decide to take the entire contents of the cup out, even though my letter opener clearly was not there and couldn't be missed if it was. But let me tell you, what I found hidden among the pens was the small black scissors from work that I never actually brought home the day prior. I basically sat on the floor for an hour, trying to find a rational and logical explanation for the entire thing to help me sleep at night. It's been months, and I would like to note that my letter opener is still gone despite searching high and low for it. And now I have 2 pairs of scissors at home. Curious what others think, because I really can't conjure up a complete explanation that doesn't involve me having memory loss, or my family playing a trick on me, which I also know didn't happen. 20. So let's go back in time, up till about 2007 and 8, autumn. The country is hungry. Me and my best friend decided to do something different other than playing video games or drinking at a pub. So we geared up and went to visit a fort in a city called Komarum. Slovakia is so close that you can see it across the river. The fort was built between 1850 and 1871, and housed as many as 8,000 soldiers during war times. As I mentioned, it was autumn, so the sky was grey, it was misty and rainy. We were surprised to see that despite the weather, the place is open and ready to welcome visitors. The shape of the building itself is somewhat similar to the letter U. You can start at one end, walk all the way to the other. Half the building consists of catacombs, and the other half just empty halls and rooms. They redid it since, had a proper makeover, so it looks rather like a museum, not an abandoned building like it was back then. So we were at the upper levels, but it was still rather dark, as the only source of light was from the tiny, narrow window holes that was probably used to shoot out of in case of an attack. So you can imagine this window projected a triangular-shaped light on the floor. We noticed something on the floor, illuminated by this light. It was a deer's head, just laying there, but positioned, in a way, that it looked like it's looking right at the window, so it wasn't toppled over. The blood on the neck was fresh, but apart from that, there was no sign of blood around the head, no sign of any other body parts. Note that, to get here, we walked a good half an hour already, up, down stairs, so for the fox or any other animal to bring a deer head in, it had to complete the same journey. We heard a family with a little kid being close by, so we ran ahead and warned the father that they shouldn't go that way, and we continued our walk too. An hour or so later, we reached the end of the whole building. The little rooms there, although they don't have proper walls and doors, were all empty. So we started walking down this corridor, when we noticed that one of these rooms has a washing machine in the corner. We started laughing, as it was just such an absurd, weird moment. The corridor finally ended with a spiral staircase we climbed up, and it was a lookout, overlooking the outer part of the fort. My friend laughed again as he noticed a graffiti on the wall saying "fuck emos." As there was nowhere else to go, we climbed back down the spiral stairs, started walking back, and guess what? No washing machine. The whole thing just disappeared. We started freaking out, so first we walked through this corridor again, checking every single little room but no washing machine. Climbed back up again on the spiral stairs, just in case we went down a different set of stairs earlier. Fuck emos was still there. Back down the stairs again, and you guessed it, washing machine back again. On both ends of the corridor, there were stairs. I'm not saying it's impossible for someone to play a prank on us and move a 50-plus kilogram washing machine down the stairs while we're not looking, and back again, but I think it's highly unlikely considering the fact that we only met the one family and the guy who sold us the tickets at the entrance through the entire day. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Glitch Monthly, number 25. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, give the video a little helping hand if you'd be so good, and hit the like button, and maybe share it on Twitter and places like that before it, completely implodes. Sorry there wasn't one last month. I had worked on it, but believe it or not, it took this long to get every single story I needed, and then only just. But it's done now, and that's the main thing. I hope you enjoyed it. Alright, grumbling aside, we actually have a birthday shout-out for today. Today's shout-out goes to Zara. I am not going to say your last name because you haven't told me I could, but Zara is an age of indeterminate number, but they are having peanut butter cheesecake today, and that sounds so good. Cheesecake. I mean, I can have cheesecake, but I'm trying to be a good boy and not eat as much junk. Although I've had to cave a little bit and have a small amount of junk, just a little bit here and there, because going cold turkey feels good initially, then the body's like, no, that's enough of that. So just, a little bit of junk now and again, but more good things as well. Oh, but cheesecake sounds so good. So I hope your addition to that rather lovely sounding cheesecake, I hope you take some time for yourself, pamper yourself, make sure you watch some TV, watch some movies, maybe go out with friends if that's the sort of thing you're into. Not my idea of a good time going out, but, you're welcome to if you want to. And just make sure that the day is about you, because it is your day, and you deserve it. And before I go, I'd like to sing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Zara. Happy birthday to you. All right, and before we go, let's have Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what is one component, one savory, one sweet, that when added to food makes it instantly better? If it's savory, I'm going to say garlic makes everything better. And if it's sweet, caramel improves everything. Even better if it's salted caramel, but I'm not a stickler for that. I just like it, not to the exclusion of all other caramels. Other caramels do exist. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and probably make me hungry in the process. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.